We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard. Because that goal will serve to organize and measure the best of our energies and skills. Because that challenge is one that we're willing to accept, one we are unwilling to postpone.
I think there are really two fundamental paths. History is going to bifurcate along two directions. One path is we stay on Earth forever, and then there will be some eventual extinction event. I don't have an immediate doomsday prophecy, but it's eventually, history suggests there will be some doomsday event. The alternative is to become a spacefaring civilization and a multi-planet species, which I hope you would agree that is the right way to go.
Has gone to closed-loop control.
Hello, greetings. I'm Professor Jun Cajigal, and I would like to welcome everybody to this last installment of The Secrets of Mars, Colonization of Mars. So, in behalf of the officers and crew of BSYA, the Bell and Society of Young Astronomers, we would like to thank everybody for watching the first two episodes. Last week, we have tackled man's exploration of Mars. So, to help us review the concepts learned in episode 2, let's have a simple, easy pop quiz. Isn't that exciting? So, I will give you 3 easy questions. And if you know the answers, just type in your answers. Please message us. And we will reveal the answers later during the live open forum. Now, if you don't know the answers or if you failed to watch episode 2, then you may consult Mr. Google. Alright? So, are you ready now? Okay, so here is the first question. Question number 1. Identify the probes of the mid-1970s that carried experiments designed to detect microorganisms in the Martian soil. Identify the probes of the mid-1970s that carried experiments designed to detect microorganisms in the Martian soil. So if you know the answer, please type in your answer, message us, so that we would know if you have recalled the name of the probes of the mid-1970s that carried experiments designed to detect microorganisms in the Martian soil. Okay, so I'll give you a hint. The biological experiment package was designed by Carl Sagan. Okay? Alright, so if you're done, let's proceed now to the second question. Okay, question number 2. Identify the instrument on board the Perseverance rover designed to produce oxygen using the carbon dioxide from the Martian atmosphere. Identify the instrument on board the Perseverance rover designed to produce oxygen using carbon dioxide from the Martian atmosphere. Okay? So if you know the answer, just type in your answer, message us, and if you fail to watch episode 2, just consult Mr. Google. So I mentioned this instrument in episode 2, designed to produce oxygen using the carbon dioxide from the Martian atmosphere. Fantastic, isn't it? Okay? Alright. So if you're done, let's proceed now to the third and last question. Okay, question number 3. Identify the instrument on board the Perseverance rover that will use ground-penetrating radar to explore what's underneath the Martian soil. Identify the instrument on board the Perseverance rover that will use ground-penetrating radar to explore what's underneath the Martian soil. Okay? So if you know the answer, just type in your answer. Please message us. And if you don't know the answer or if you failed to watch episode 2, then consult Mr. Google. So come on, guys, especially those students out there, please participate and join us in this educational endeavor. So identify the instrument on board the Perseverance rover that will use ground-penetrating radar to explore what's underneath the Martian soil. Okay? Alright, so I guess we can now proceed to our main agenda, the secrets of Mars, colonization of Mars. So please join us, especially those students out there. Join us and let's watch and participate in this learning endeavor. Hello, greetings. This is Professor Jun Cajigal, and I would like to welcome everybody to this third and final installment of The Secrets of Mars, Episode 3, Colonization of Mars. Now, if you will recall, in Episode 1, we have tackled man's fascination of the red planet. And in episode 2, we have focused on man's exploration of Mars. So in this third and final installment, we will be focusing on how man can colonize the red planet. So that's the big question now, ladies and gentlemen. Can we colonize Mars? Is colonization of Mars possible? So if you will ask me, the answer is yes. Colonization of Mars is possible. In fact, the colonization of Mars has received interest from the public, okay? From space agencies like NASA, ESA, and private corporations like SpaceX. And the colonization of Mars has received extensive treatment in science fiction writing, in film, and art. Like what I have mentioned in episode 1, the colonization of Mars has influenced even our pop culture. So this includes film, sci-fi, literature, and art. Okay, so that's how popular that concept of colonizing Mars is. So the first step in Mars colonization would be a human mission to Mars. A human mission to Mars would be the first step towards any colonization effort. So dapat magpadala po muna tayo ng tao sa Mars before any colonization efforts would be possible. Okay? So human mission to Mars first. Now again, there are reasons why we need to colonize Mars. I mentioned this already in episode 2. Okay, so the first reason would be pure curiosity. Okay, we need to colonize Mars because we want to add knowledge of the red planet. Pure curiosity. To boldly go where no man has gone before. Okay? Another reason is that the potential for humans to provide more in-depth observational research than unmanned rovers. Okay? Maraming nagawa ang mga unmanned rovers like Curiosity, Pathfinder. So, they have accumulated so much data about the red planet. Pero iba rin talaga pag yung tao mismo ang pumunta sa Mars. Okay? The potential for humans to provide a more in-depth observational research as compared to unmanned rovers. Kasi iba yung talagang umapak ka mismo sa ibang planeta. Okay? Iba yon as compared to sending robotic rovers to the red planet. Okay? Alright, another reason why we need to colonize Mars is the economic interest in its resources. Ayan, so we are aware of right now, diba yung mga resources natin dito sa Earth medyo nadideplete na. So maybe Mars could be a source of these resources. Ayan, so economic interest in its resources. And another reason for colonizing Mars is the possibility that the settlement of other planets could decrease the likelihood of human extinction. Okay? Finding other worlds. Yan, para ma-colonize natin. Okay? Probably there would be a time, darating yung panahon na the Earth would be uninhabitable. Because of pollution, siguro, or probably we would destroy ourselves through nuclear war. So, the possibility that the settlement of other planets, especially Mars, could decrease the likelihood of human extinction. Okay? As the saying goes, to boldly go where no man has gone before. So these are the reasons why we need to colonize Mars. And the fact that beyond Earth, Mars is the only one of the only places in the solar system where humans could one day live. Now, this notion of colonizing the red planet really became popular because of the fact that Mars is relatively similar to Earth. Mars and Earth are similar in several ways, and I have mentioned this already in episode 1. Okay? So, one similarity between Earth and Mars would be the duration of its day. Now, here on Earth, one day is 24 hours. But a Martian day or sol is about 24 hours and 40 minutes. So, sobra lang po ng 40 minutes sa Mars. The Martian day or sol is very close in duration to Earth's. A solar day on Mars is 24 hours and 40 minutes, which is really close to Earth. Kasi po ang Earth natin ay an Earth day is 24 hours. Okay? So, that's one similarity between Earth and Mars. Okay, also, Mars has an actual tilt of 25.19 degrees, similar to Earth's 23.44. Okay, so malapit lang po. 23.5 yung tilt ng axis natin as compared to Mars. The Mars has an actual tilt of 25.19 degrees. So halos magkalapit lang po. And as a result of this, Mars has seasons, much like the Earth. And we observe the changes in seasons on Mars by observing the shrinking and growth of the polar ice caps. So pag malaki yung polar ice cap sa Mars, that's equivalent to a Martian winter. Pag maliit yung polar ice caps, that is equivalent to a Martian summer. Okay? So because of this similarity in the actual tilt between Mars and Earth, Mars has seasons much like the Earth. Okay? Alright. Another similarity would be the presence of water ice. So, observations by Mars rovers and orbiters detected the presence of water ice on Mars. So, malaki yung possibility po na may tubig sa Mars. And there are geologic evidence that water once flowed on the red planet. Kasi di ba may mga na-discover silang mga geological features that resemble dried up riverbeds. And as we mentioned also in episode 1, water is locked in the polar ice caps of Mars. Okay? Alright, and everybody look at this photograph taken by Viking. So again, it's obvious that the Martian terrain resembled that of a desert. Parang yung mga desyerto natin dito sa Earth. Okay? So, very similar po yung Martian terrain saka yung terrain natin dito sa Earth. So, look at the Martian terrain, ladies and gentlemen. The Martian terrain really is similar to our deserts here on Earth. Okay. So, those are some of the similarities between Earth and Mars. Now, it's obvious that Earth is also different from Mars. Okay, Mars is different from Earth in several ways. So, one would be the atmosphere. Now, our atmosphere is over 100 times denser than the Martian atmosphere. Okay? So, mas makapal po ang atmosphere natin as compared to the Martian atmosphere. The Earth's atmosphere is over 100 times denser than the Martian atmosphere. Okay, another difference would be the gravitational pull. Now, because Mars is smaller and less massive as compared to Earth, the Martian gravity also is less as compared to Earth. So, if you weigh about 100 pounds on Earth, you would weigh only 38 pounds on Mars. Di ba po? So, pag gusto niyo magbawas ng timbang, imbis na mag-exercise po kayo, di pumunta na lang po kayo sa Mars. Okay, so if you weigh 100 pounds here on Earth, you would weigh only 38 pounds on Mars. Okay, so that's a difference in terms of the gravitational pull. And also, in relation to the gravitational pull, on Mars, you would experience about 62.5% less gravity than you're used to here on Earth. So, kung dito sa Earth nakatalon kayo, like the one in the illustration, pagdating nyo sa Mars, you can do kangaroo hops. Mas mataas po yung talon ninyo because the gravitational pull on Mars is less as compared to the gravitational pull here on Earth. Okay? So, mas magiging mataas po ang talon ninyo sa Mars. Okay, so pwede kayong mag-basketball sa Mars. Makakadunk po kayo. Okay, and another difference between Earth and Mars would be the temperature. Now, since we know that Mars is farther from the Sun as compared to Earth, so that means Mars is receiving less heat from the Sun as compared to Earth. So that means malamig po talaga sa Mars. In fact, the coldest temperature recorded on the Martian surface is negative 125 degrees Celsius as compared to the coldest recorded temperature here on Earth, about negative 92 degrees Celsius. So talagang malamig sa Mars. Okay? It's even colder than Antarctica. Okay, and you combine that with the Martian terrain. That's why the Martian terrain is described as a frozen desert. Okay, so those are just some of the differences between Mars and Earth. Okay, so at this point, we have mentioned the similarities and differences between Earth and Mars. So the question now is, now how do we go to Mars? So the first thing that we need to consider would be the transportation. Okay, so we need to consider this for our journey to Mars. Kung paano tayo pupunta sa Mars, so we need a form of transportation. Now, a trip to Mars requires about 7 months in space. So medyo matagal po yan. A trip or a journey to the red planet requires approximately 7 months in space. Okay? So medyo matagal po yan. So we need to shorten the travel time again because we all know some of the perils or dangers of interplanetary spaceflight, like the effects of microgravity in space, the effects of radiation. So we need to shorten the travel time at least below 7 months. So pwede na po mga 4 months on our journey to Mars. At least 4 months na lang po as compared to 7 months. Masyadong matagal po yung 7 months. So shortening the travel time below 7 months would require increased amount of fuel for our chemical rockets. So medyo medyo duda tayo dyan because if you increase the amount of fuel, mas bibigat po yung rocket. And that's a problem. Okay? But that's one way of shortening the travel time below 7 months. So we increase the fuel for our chemical rockets. Okay? And NASA is now working on this vehicle called Orion. Okay, the Orion is much bigger than the Apollo spacecraft. If you will look at the diagram, so yung Orion spacecraft is similar to the Apollo command module. Yan. Kaya lang mas malaki po ito yung Orion. Alright, the Orion is bigger as compared to the Apollo 11 command module. Even yung service module ng Orion medyo malaki as compared to the service module of the Apollo spacecraft. So everybody look at this diagram. So we have here a comparison between the Apollo spacecraft and the Orion spacecraft. Yan, so medyo malaki. Malaki tong Orion. So this Mars spacecraft must be lifted by a heavy rocket. Dapat mas malaki yung rocket nito as compared to the Saturn V. So the Orion spacecraft will be carried by the Space Launch System or SLS. So NASA is working on this heavy lift vehicle, the SLS. Alright? Okay. Now, a trip to Mars, as I have mentioned, requires 7 months in space. So, shortening the travel time also involves using advanced spacecraft propulsion technologies, some of which have already been tested to varying levels like the variable specific impulse magnetoplasma rocket and nuclear rockets. Now, these new technologies are now being tested by NASA and several private corporations. Okay, so here is a diagram of a nuclear rocket. Now, the propellant is hydrogen. The hydrogen is pumped in a nuclear reactor. Inside the nuclear reactor, a chain reaction occurs. And this chain reaction of atoms produces hot gases, which is then ejected through the nozzle. So, fantastic, isn't it? So, this technology is now being tested by NASA and several private corporations. So, that's a nuclear rocket engine. So, hopefully, in the future, nuclear-powered rockets would take their journey to the red planet to shorten the travel time. Sana kung 7 months, mapaiksi yung travel time to 4 months lang because of these nuclear-powered rockets. Okay, and this was depicted in the movie The Martian. Yung mothership nila, it's called Hermes. And this mothership is powered by nuclear rockets para mas shorten po yung kanilang journey to Mars. Okay? So that's a nuclear powered rocket which was depicted in the movie The Martian. Alright, and if you will notice, the Hermes rotates. This rotation produces centrifugal force, and this centrifugal force is equivalent to an artificial gravity because we all know that there are some effects of microgravity in space to the human body. Yan, so umiikot yung Hermes. Alright, and also, in our journey to Mars, we should also consider the moon. Okay? Kasi mahirap po mag-construct ng rockets dito sa Earth pa manggagaling. So, if we can construct the Mars spacecraft sa moon, mas madali po siya. We can make the spacecraft larger to accommodate more astronauts. So, the moon is said to be our gateway to the red planet. Okay? So, the exploration of Mars we would be needing the moon. Okay? Alright, so the moon is said to be the gateway to Mars. Now, once the spacecraft reaches the red planet, there are many challenges that the astronauts must face upon reaching the red planet. So this includes radiation, temperature, low oxygen or no oxygen at all, the lack of food, the lack of water, the lack of fuel, the atmospheric pressure. They have to deal with that because we all know that the Martian atmosphere is thin. So that is tantamount to a lesser air pressures compared to Earth. And the time delay, we have mentioned this in episode 2, the communication time delay, and the Mars habitat. So these are just the challenges that these Mars explorers must face upon arrival to the red planet. Okay, now let us now tackle on this issue of human habitation on Mars. Now, what are the conditions for human habitation? Now, we have to consider that the surface of Mars is not hospitable for humans or most known life forms. This is due to what? This is due to radiation. Now, we all know that Mars has no oxygen, so no ozone. So the Martian surface is bombarded with deadly radiation from the sun. Also, they have to deal with greatly reduced air pressure and the atmosphere, which is only about 0.16% oxygen. See? So the surface of Mars is not hospitable to humans or most known life forms. So we have to consider that. Okay? So human survival on Mars would require living in artificial Mars habitats with life support systems. Okay? So ito po yung kailangan in order to colonize Mars. So human survival on Mars would require living in artificial Mars habitats with complex life support systems. Okay, so what are these examples of complex life support systems? So one example would be the recycling of water or water processing systems. Now, through experience and training, astronauts on board the International Space Station or ISS have shown that it is possible to use far less water and that around 70% of what is used can be recycled using the ISS water recovery system. So, anong ibig sabihin nito? Yung mga astronauts po sa ISS, they use less water kasi limited po yung water supply nila. And yung 70% na nagamit nila is recycled. So that includes urine. So yung mga ihi ng astronauts, they recycle it. Meron silang complex filtering machine on board the ISS to filter out urine. So naiinom din po nila yung urine nila. See? So that's the water processing system on board the ISS. So kailangan po ito in a Mars mission. Because of the limited water on their 7-month journey to Mars, they need to use less water and, if possible, recycle the water that was used, including their urine. Okay? Fantastic! Isn't it? Diba? Okay. In the ISS, they make use of less water. So kung pwede, magtipid po sila sa tubig. And yung 70% na nagamit nila must be recycled. And that includes their urine. Okay, so another example of a life support system that is considered in colonizing the red planet is the generation of oxygen. Okay, there must be a way to generate oxygen on the Martian surface. All right, and I'm sure you are aware of the Perseverance rover on its way to the red planet. And on board the Perseverance rover or the Mars 2020 rover is a special equipment called MOXIE or Mars Oxygen ISRU experiment, in short, MOXIE. Now, MOXIE is an instrument that seeks to turn the atmospheric carbon dioxide on Mars into oxygen to be used as propellant and life support. Okay? Now, MOXIE is a payload being developed for NASA's Perseverance rover or Mars 2020 rover and will produce oxygen from the Martian atmosphere through the process known as solid oxide electrolysis. Okay? Alright, so here is a simple diagram of what MOXIE can do. So, MOXIE will absorb the carbon dioxide from the Martian atmosphere. So, you can see that yung intake. So, MOXIE will absorb the Martian atmosphere containing carbon dioxide, and this carbon dioxide will undergo solid oxide electrolysis. So there are electronics on board MOXIE that will utilize this process known as solid oxide electrolysis. So parang electrolysis po yung, I'm sure you're familiar with this, yung separation of hydrogen and oxygen from water through a process known as electrolysis. So water is separated into hydrogen and oxygen. Ito po, similar po ito. So we know that carbon dioxide is composed of 1 part carbon and 2 parts oxygen. So ihiwalayin po yan yung carbon from the oxygen through this process. So ang lalabas sa MOXIE is oxygen, yun, and carbon monoxide. So nabawasan po siya ng isang oxygen atom. Okay? Fantastic, isn't it? So this is how MOXIE works. So converting atmospheric carbon dioxide and this carbon dioxide in the Martian atmosphere undergoes solid oxide electrolysis, separating carbon from oxygen. Okay, so that's one way of generating oxygen. So this is now on board the Perseverance rover. Fantastic, isn't it? Wow! Pag natuloy po ito, the colonization of Mars would be on its way because there's now a way to generate oxygen on the red planet. So that's MOXIE. Okay? Alright. So that's really something to look forward to. Okay, so once the Perseverance rover lands on the red planet, and when MOXIE is activated, yan, makikita natin if MOXIE can really convert atmospheric carbon dioxide into oxygen. Now, in colonizing the red planet, we need to consider the effects on human health. Now, in colonizing Mars, we need to consider the effects of gravity. Now, the difference in gravity would negatively affect human health because we all know that the Martian gravity is less as compared to gravity here on Earth. Now, this difference in gravity would affect human health by weakening bones and muscles. And there is also the risk of osteoporosis and cardiovascular problems. And they are now studying the effects of this difference in gravity in the International Space Station. Now, we mentioned in episode 2 that one of the effects of microgravity would be the deposition of calcium in our bones. So there is a decrease in density. So may bone loss because of microgravity. So lumalambot po yung buto natin. And as a result, osteoporosis occurs. Okay, because of this microgravity. So what more sa Mars? Because of the less gravity on the Martian surface, yun, magkakaroon po ng less deposition of calcium in our bones. So as a result, you will have osteoporosis. So it is reported that 3.2% of bone loss occurs after 10 days of microgravity. So na-experience po nila yan sa International Space Station. It is not known how much of this bone loss is recoverable after returning to Earth, although it is probably not 100%. So talagang naka-apekto po sa mga buto natin yan. So these changes in bones may limit the duration of space flights. So dapat hindi po matagal ang journey sa Mars. Kung pwede po natin mapaiksi from 7 to 4 months. Again, because of the danger of osteoporosis for our astronauts. Also, in microgravity, you do not use the muscles that help you stand and maintain posture. Kasi nakalutang po sila, especially sa ISS. Okay, so during extended space flights, about 20% of the slow twitch become fast twitch fibers which are smaller in size. So, ang ibig lang po sabihin nito, because with the astronauts, they don't use their muscles kasi nga lumulutang lang po silang ganyan. So, muscle atrophy may occur. So, lumiliit po yung muscles. Kasi hindi naman po nila ginagamit yung muscles to maintain posture. Yan. As you can see here, lumulutang po sila para silang Superman na lumilipad. Diba? So this may result to a decrease in muscle mass. Okay? And also, the one effect of microgravity would be in the circulation of our blood. Now, due to microgravity, blood shifts away from the legs and blood moves towards the head. Ganun po. So, hindi rin maganda po yan. Because of microgravity, there would be less supply of blood in the lower extremities. Okay? And again, like what I mentioned, because of microgravity, there would be a decrease in muscle mass. So, paano yan? On the 7-month journey to Mars and the less gravitational pull on the Martian surface. Now, in the ISS, to minimize the effects of microgravity, nag-exercise po sila. As you could see here, itong astronaut na ito, nag-exercise po siya to minimize the effects of microgravity in the International Space Station. So, in our journey to Mars, yung 7-month journey natin sa Mars, the Mars astronauts would require also this activity. So, dapat nag-exercise din po sila on their 7-month journey to Mars. And pag nasa Mars na sila, they also should do the same. Kasi yung gravitational pull sa Mars is less as compared to the gravity here on Earth. So, ayan po yun ang ginagawa sa International Space Station. The astronauts are required to exercise at least 3 hours a day. Okay, to minimize the effects of microgravity on bones and muscles. Okay? Yan, fantastic, isn't it? Diba? So, nag-exercise po yung mga astronauts on board the ISS. So, the Mars astronauts must do the same thing on their 7-month journey to Mars. So, it is very important for astronauts to exercise at least 3 times a day in order to minimize the effects of microgravity on bones and muscles. Okay, So another thing that must be considered for a manned mission to Mars is exposure to radiation. Now Mars has no global magnetosphere as Earth does. So what does this mean? Now Mars is not surrounded by a magnetic field. Unlike our planet, the Earth is surrounded by a magnetic field. The Earth is a giant magnet, and this giant magnet surrounds us with a magnetic field. And this magnetic field protects us from harmful radiation from the sun. Now Mars has no magnetosphere, so no magnetic field, plus the fact that the Martian atmosphere is thin, so a significant amount of ionizing radiation penetrates the Martian surface. Okay? So the surface of Mars is bombarded with a significant amount of ionizing radiation. So, radiation bombarding the body of an astronaut can increase the risk of getting cancer. So, yan po, kasi wala naman pong magnetic field sa Mars to protect it from radiation. So, the astronaut is constantly bombarded with radiation. And this will increase the risk of getting cancer. Alright? So, what is now the solution? Now, the only solution would be heavy shielding. So, heavy shielding amounting to about 15 centimeters of steel. So, makapal po yan. Or 1 meter of rock. Or 3 meters of water. Limiting human colonies to living underground practically 100% of the time. So, anong ibig sabihin po nito? So, ang habitat, the Mars habitat, must have a shielding of about 15 centimeters of steel. So, dapat makapal po ang shielding to protect the astronauts inside the habitat from deadly radiation from the sun. Okay? Or, the habitat must be constructed underneath the Martian surface. So, sa ilalim ng lupa, i-construct yung habitat to protect the astronauts from deadly radiation from the sun. And even the spacesuit must be properly shielded para maprotektahan po yung mga astronauts from radiation. So this is a very important aspect to consider for a manned mission to Mars, the exposure to radiation. Okay, and lastly, a manned mission to Mars should consider the psychological effects on the crew. Now, due to the communication delays, we mentioned this in episode 2, that a one-way radio message from Mars to Earth would take about 13 minutes. So, that means that the Mars astronauts must wait 26 minutes for any reply from mission control. So because of this, new protocols need to be developed in order to assess crew members' psychological health. Kasi di ba po, pag matagal po mag-reply, nag-aalala po mga astronauts pag matagal po yung message. Especially pag may nangyaring masama in the habitat, the Mars habitat. So this is important, yung psychological health ng mga astronauts. Alright? So, scientists should consider the psychological effects of isolation, repetitive tasks, and living in close quarters with other scientists for up to a year at a time. So, very important po ito, isolation. Yan kasi ang feeling po ng astronaut, nag-iisa na lang po siya sa planet Mars. Kasi ang layo ng planet Mars sa Earth. So, yun ang magiging feeling ng mga astronauts, a feeling of isolation. And also, repetitive task, yung paulit-ulit po na trabaho nila. Nakakabaliw po yun, di ba? Paulit-ulit na lang lagi. And living in close living quarters. So, kasama niyo po yung mga scientists up to a year. Di ba parang quarantine po ang mga astronauts. Kung tayo nga po, di ba? We have been in quarantine for several months already. Di ba? Nasa bahay lang tayo because of the coronavirus pandemic. So, di ba nakakabaliw po yun? Several months po tayong nasa bahay, di ba? That will affect the mental health of the people in quarantine measures na yan. What more for a manned mission to Mars? So, more than a year po sila nasa habitat. Okay? So, the psychological health of the astronauts must also be considered. Okay? Like in the movie The Martian, di ba? Naiwanan si Mark Watney. So, he felt isolated sa Mars. Nag-iisa lang po siya sa Mars. Okay? So, because of his attitude of not giving up, Mark Watney was able to solve problems one at a time. Then, eventually, nakauwi din siya sa Earth. Okay? So, scientists must consider the psychological or mental health of the Mars crew. Okay, so I guess that's it for episode 3, ladies and gentlemen. Now, before we end, I just would like to share some life lessons from the movie The Martian. This movie is really one of my favorites, and this movie really features many concepts that are possible for a manned mission to Mars. And aside from the scientific aspect of the movie, there are several life lessons that we can learn from this movie, The Martian. Now, one important life lesson that we can learn from this movie is hardships can come anytime. So, it doesn't matter who you are or how old you are, or whether you are rich or poor. Now, when hardships come, they come knocking. And all we can do is be prepared. Even if that sometimes we are just caught off guard. Okay? So, kahit na mayaman ka or mahirap, matanda ka or bata, yan, dumarating po sa buhay natin yan. Okay? So, dapat lang maging handa tayo, pero most of the time, we are caught off guard. Like, itong nangyari sa atin po ngayon, di ba? Itong pagdating ng coronavirus pandemic. So, hindi po natin inaasahan to. And, frankly, we are not prepared for this. Di ba? So, kahit bata ka o matanda, mayaman ka o mahirap, if you are inflicted with the virus, then that's it, di ba? Okay? And ngayon po, because of the lockdowns, yung mga quarantine protocols, maraming nawalan ng trabaho. Okay, yung iba po namamalimos na, especially yung mga jeepney drivers. So, yan, hardships can come anytime. So, all we have to do is be prepared and pray. Diba po? Like what happened to Matt Damon's character, si Mark Watney. So, the same happens to Mark Damon's character, that's Mark Watney, in the movie as well. So, everything was going well for the crew on Mars, and suddenly, due to a stroke of bad luck, Mark Watney, played by Matt Damon, was separated from his team and was stranded alone on the red planet. So, if you will recall in that scene, di ba nagkaroon po ng dust storm and Mark Watney was injured. So, naiwanan po siya ng kanyang crew. Bumalik po yung crew sa mothership, then bumalik sila sa Earth. And Mark Watney, played by Matt Damon, was stranded. So, yun ang paghihirap niya. So, marami siyang paghihirap while he was alone on the red planet. Okay? So, hindi niya inaasahan yun na may stranded siya. He would be marooned on Mars. So, ganyan din po sa buhay. So, hardships can come anytime. Okay? So, Basta lang ho, kapit at hindi tayo mag-give up. So, hardships can come anytime. So, that's our first life lesson from this movie, The Martian. Hardships can come anytime. Okay? Now, the second life lesson that we can learn from this movie, The Martian, is don't give up hope. So, when hardships come, it is easy to give up hope. And it is the first thing that people usually do. Diba po, pag may dumating na pagsubok sa buhay natin, susuko na kagad tayo. Ay, ayoko na. Ang hirap naman nito. Okay? So usually, yun ang ginagawa po natin. That's because most of the time, they are simply not expecting it and it hits them hard. Okay? So, the same thing happened to Matt Damon's character, Mark Watney. Okay? So, hindi siya sumuko. Alright? So, even though he was marooned on the red planet, hindi siya sumuko. He survived his ordeal. So, limited food supply, nagtanim siya ng patatas, and he tried his best to communicate to his crew. Okay, so gumawa siya po ng mga ways para makipag-communicate siya. Alright? Watney was left stranded alone on an entire planet. Yet he didn't give up hope, di ba? Hindi sumuko si Mark Watney. Nagtanim siya ng patatas, hinanap niya yung Pathfinder in order for him to communicate to his crew and mission control. That is the first step. Okay, it is literally telling your brain that something can be done. So, may mga paraan na pwedeng gawin like yung mga ginawa ni Mark Watney. And that's where you start to turn things around, di ba? So like limited yung food supply niya. So nagtanim siya. And in terms of communication, he tried to locate Pathfinder, yung robotic rover. And he communicated with his crew and mission control. Okay? That something can be done. So never give up hope, ladies and gentlemen. So ito, kahit nasa pandemya po tayo, we are still hoping for that vaccine. Okay? Alright. So, yan, nagtanim po siya ng patatas. Talagang hindi sumuko si Mark Watney. And he tried to locate yung Pathfinder so that he can communicate with the mission control and his comrades dun sa Hermes. Alright? Okay. And also, another important lesson from the movie, always bring duct tape. Duct tape works anywhere. Yan. So, napaka-mahalaga itong duct tape. Even the Apollo astronauts, yung Apollo 13, meron po silang dalang duct tape. Okay? Diba, if you will recall, diba, nagkaroon po ng accident sa Apollo 13. The oxygen tanks exploded. So, buti na lang may duct tape yung mga astronauts. So, they were able to figure out ways to solve certain problems. And nagamit po nila yung duct tape. And this was featured also in the movie The Martian, yung paggamit ng duct tape. Okay? Like there was a scene na basag po yung salamin ng helmet niya. So, nagkaroon ng decompression sa spacesuit. So, anong ginamit niya para matagpian niya yung crack dun sa helmet? Well, you got it. Duct tape. O yan, di ba? Then, yung na-decompress po yung habitat, di ba? Sumabog po yung pintuan. Then, nasira po yung mga halaman niya. So, anong ginamit ni Mark Watney to fix the auto door of the habitat? Well, you got it. Duct tape. So, duct tape is magic. Okay, so dapat yung mga Mars astronauts must bring duct tape with them. Okay, guys. So, I guess that's it for episode 3. Okay? So, episode 1, we have studied man's fascination of Mars. In episode 2, we have studied man's exploration of Mars. And this episode, episode 3, we have tackled how we can colonize the red planet. So, are we ready to go to Mars? So, tara na. Let's go to Mars. Okay? Alright. So, after Mars, then what's next? So, probably the next step now is the moon. So, we must colonize the moon first. We must establish a lunar base. Then, from there, we can assemble the Mars spacecraft. Kasi mas madali po yung less gravity and walang atmosphere. So, we can assemble a Mars spacecraft on the moon or lunar orbit. Mas malaki po yung Mars spacecraft if it is assembled on the moon. So, they can carry more fuel, more food, more oxygen, and more crew. Okay, so in my opinion, that's the next step. Okay, we must first establish a lunar base. Then from there, we can proceed to a manned mission to Mars. Like what I mentioned in this talk, that the moon is our gateway to Mars. Okay? Alright, so again, I will leave you with this quotation mentioned by Carl Sagan. So, the sky calls to us. If we do not destroy ourselves, we will one day venture into the stars. Alright. Okay, so that's Carl Sagan, my idol. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, thank you for listening. So please watch and share this live stream, and please like our Facebook page, The Bedan Society of Young Astronomers. Okay, so that's it for the trilogy of The Secrets of Mars.
Greetings, Earthlings. Again, I am Zarkon from the planet Mars. Thank you for watching this last episode of The Secrets of Mars. I hope you have learned much about our planet. So please like and share this live stream event. Like and share the Facebook page of this organization, the Bedan Society of Young Astronomers. Please check out also this replay on YouTube. So I will leave this planet and will return to Mars. So keep safe and you Earthlings, I will invade your planet.
Oh no! Oh no!
All right. Oh, good evening and welcome to this last installment of The Secrets of Mars, the colonization of the red planet. So we are now in the live open for part of this virtual lecture. So I would like to thank those participating, mga sumali po ating short quiz. So I gave 3 questions a while ago. This is the first part virtual. And ang nakasagot po ay si Geo rather. So I hope Geo C. Baumbad is listening. So maraming salamat for your participation. Miss Geo C. Baumbad was answer all the 3 questions correct. So the first question, what's that Mars rover during the mid 1970s that conducted biology experiments on the red planet? So that was the Viking lander. So the biology experiment package was designed by Carl Sagan. So Viking, yun po. All right, then yung second question, what's that instrument on board the Perseverance rover that absorbs the carbon dioxide from the Mars and can convert it to oxygen? So this instrument is called MOXIE. All right, so JOC Baombad was able to get that correctly. And the last question, what's that instrument on board the Perseverance rover that acts like a ground penetrating radar? Okay, designed to locate possibly water beneath the Martian surface. So that instrument is called RIMFAX. So tama na naman po si Leo si Baobad. So maraming salamat po sa sana meron kaming pa-premyo po sa inyo, Geo si Baombad. So babawi po kami sa inyo. Don't worry. All right? So maraming salamat for joining, and I would like to thank also the following po, yung mga suki po namin in watching the trilogy of the Secrets of Mars. So si Mr. Luis Valdivia, yan, si GC Cascolan, by the way, he is the incoming president of BSYA. And si JOC Baombad, so maraming salamat. Si Mr. Dudes Pereira, who is also the founder. Si Mr. Ralph Richmond de la Cruz. Si Miss Eslyn Carbonell, I hope. Salamat. Suki siya, suki. Mr. Adrian Jeffrey, forgot his surname. Pero marami. And si Miss Kualin Recabar. Yan, estudyante ko. So, maraming salamat, Iha, for The Secrets of Mars. So, maraming po salamat sa mga nanonood. And I hope that you have learned much about the trilogy, The Secrets of Mars. We are doing this again as our advocacy to help the youth with their education. Kasi nga po ang astronomy is part of the curriculum of the grade 11. So I would like to invite all the senior high school, especially grade 11, to continue watching our live stream events. Please like and share our live stream events, and please like and share our Facebook page, the Bedan Society of Young Astronomers. Okay? So astronomy is part of your earth science subject. So sa pamamagitan po ng mga live streams na ito, isa sa mga estudyante dyan na nakikinig. Okay? So, thank you very much for listening. And please stay tuned next week. We will have another exciting, fascinating, and interesting topic. Okay? We will tackle the history of astronomy. Isn't that fascinating? All right. So, in behalf of the Bedan Society of Young Astronomers, to our incoming president, Mr. GC Casco, and our head technical director, kundi sa kanya wala po itong live stream na ito, si Cruz Paculanan, maraming salamat. And to all the members of BSYA, thank you for helping out in our live stream events. Okay? So, and also the administrators of San Beda University Senior High School, thank you po for your never-ending support for our organization. Sana hindi po kayo mag... Okay, so this is June Cajigal saying, live long and prosper. And I will see you next week for the history of astronomy. All right, so stay safe, everybody, and